that even though things have been getting a little wild out there, it is still something that you and I need to know. And that is that there is consistency in our lives. And a lot of the things that are coming our way, we can actually, have some peace that passes all understanding. Now, that has to do with a decision that we are going to make daily. You can stress, you can worry about all the things that are happening around you, or you can simply say, okay, I am going to take a breath. I'm going to step back for just a moment. Taking a breath, just a couple of seconds, just kind of, what that does? It helps us to calm down because so many things that we're running into want to have some sort of reaction. And I love how James puts it this way. He says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So basically, what James is saying, step back for just a moment. You don't have to necessarily answer something right away. Now, I want to tell you that we actually have some pretty quick reactions. For example, when you're driving down the road, all of a sudden someone comes into your lane, well, you can react most of the time. You have a natural instinct, of course, to react. But sometimes it just is a smart idea not to actually say anything because silence can be so powerful. And then it also gives you an opportunity to be able to say to someone, do you really want me to react to this thing? And recently, I've been watching some videos about what you can do when someone is pressing your buttons. And in each of those videos, they simply said, take time. You don't have to answer right away. Salesmen, for example, are always looking for you to make the decision right away because they know that if you take time to think through your decision, you're going to be looking at the pros and cons. You're going to be looking at, is this going to be a benefit for me? They're actually appealing to your emotions and they're also appealing to instantaneous decisions. And sometimes instantaneous decisions are the best decisions, but sometimes they're not. So it's important to step back for just a moment, take a breath, and think things through. Now, the marvelous thing about the human being and you and I and the way that God made us is he gave us a mind that can pretty well, think things through pretty quickly. So it is important to just step back, take a breath, and also as well, think through for just a moment about what you're going to say. Also, as well, when you are looking in the face of someone, you are also making an evaluation of whether or not you consider your answer and how you're going to answer. Because the simple fact is, you want to be treated the same way that you're about to treat them. Remember, no matter how anyone treats you, you're not going to treat them the same way. You are going to treat them the way that you want to be treated. And so you always frame your answer according to that. Because if this person has treated you bad, you don't want to do the same to them because the simple fact is there is what we call reciprocation. I mean, that's what Mr. Trump was all about when he said this week, we're going to announce some reciprocal tariffs. So right now, because China is also as well doing tariffs on them, right now China is facing a 125% reciprocal tariff when it comes to the United States. The thing is, actually, United States and China only do 14% of their, China only does 14% of its trade with, of course, United States. So they can, accelerate the process. But is acceleration something that you want to do? Do you want to go from 0 to 60 when it comes to reacting to someone? Sometimes no reaction is the best reaction. I've seen situations where someone has tried to provoke me, and instead I just turned away and walked away. And all of a sudden, they're left going, what just happened? I chose not to engage in that particular activity. And that's okay too. It's okay to say, okay, bye. And that's all right as well. But again, understand that however you treat someone, they're going to treat you the same way. So it's a bit of a wise decision on what you're going to do. And that's what wisdom is all about. Wisdom looks at the knowledge, it looks at the information, it looks at the situation and says, okay, do I react or do I not react? And how do I react? And what are the guidelines of how I am going to react? Am I going to react in anger? Because I guarantee that if you react in anger, it is going to accelerate the process. Now, I remember this one particular conversation that I was having with a fella, and he was trying to provoke a reaction. And so all of a sudden, and I'm being cool about the whole situation. He says, "Why don't you react?" Well, I said, "You want a reaction?" He says, "Yes, I want a reaction." So I reacted. And then afterwards, after I finished getting off the phone, I thought, that was dumb. He was just trying to bait me. And right then and there, I made a determination that when someone was trying to bait me, when someone was trying to get a reaction, I wasn't going to react, because I want to tell you something. I felt bad about that. I felt bad about the fact that this person wanted me to react, and he wanted me to react in a certain way. So I did, and then afterwards I thought, well, that was a dumb thing to do. And from then on, I said to myself, you know what? Bottom line, I'm going to treat everybody the way that I would want to be treated. And if it means that someone is trying to bait me, if someone's trying to get a reaction from me, I'm not going to give it to them. You know why? Because what it does is brings me down to their level. And I don't want to be at their level. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be unsociable. I don't want to be an instigator or a manipulator or an intimidator. I don't want to be an accuser. I don't want to be involved in slander or all those things, or, become a topic. One of the things that I was very interesting when I was a young man, I used to work at in mental health. And I was not used to workplace gossip. And so basically, for the first week or so, we would meet as a group, and then we would hear from our ward charge, and he would go on, and then everybody would start having coffee together. And then what happened was they began to talk about people. And I realized one day, after about a week, I got up, and one of the persons says, where are you going? I said, well, I don't want to be part of this activity. They said, what activity is that? I said, talking about everybody. And I knew that as soon as I left the room, they'd be talking about me. Well, the next day, a young lady who had seen what I had done, she said, you know what? They did talk about you. I said, yeah, I knew they would. And so what happened was, over about 2 weeks' time, I would go out and sit in the day room and, have my tea. And sooner or later, there was about 6 or 7 of us that right after the ward charge had finished their conversation, we would leave and we would go out and have coffee together, and we would have a sociable time. It was just a simple reaction. I wasn't even saved at the time, but I just knew that this is something that I did not want to participate in. And the reason why was my mom. She was at that time a bit of a gossip. So she liked those gossip magazines. And so I grew up with this and I said, you know what? I don't need this. I don't want that. So basically, remember this. Um, Take time just to think things through. And also, as well, be a person who says, you know what? I'm going to treat everyone the way that I want to be treated. It's just a little simple piece of advice, but it can save you so much trouble. A little thought for you today. Well, if you like what you've been hearing and seeing, I always encourage you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me today.